were told not to talk about angels, shepherds, or even wise men, for you might offend somebody. Because after all, they say, December 25th is just a holiday. While merchants and malls prepare to take money from your hand, Christians won't take a stand to insist that we call December 25th Christmas. From Haynes Mall to Four Seasons, shoppers with cash, checks, and credit knock each other down just to get it. CDs by Beyonce, shoes by Prada, suits by Sean John, Fubu, Halston, Gucci, Fiorucci. Gadgets like iPad, iPod. But something is odd. At Walmart and Sears, the word Christmas won't touch your ears. And faced with such tragedy, you see, Christians must take a stand. Christians must stand up for the reason for the season. The reason for the season, the true gift of Christmas, is often discarded before it started because we won't take a stand. But I'm here to remind you this morning that in our politeness, in our political correctness, we're not going to offend those of other faiths. Instead, when you celebrate winter break under your dream tree, be sure to shout with glee, not happy holiday, but shout Merry Christmas. Come on and give God the glory. You ought to shout Merry Christmas.
Merry
You
Christmas.
ought to say it now.
Merry Christmas.
Boldness with your faith is not unkind to other religions. Being bold with your faith is not politically incorrect. Being bold with your faith is about playing on God's team. You see, Christians, church folk, the people of God, we are part of an advanced team. And many movements send out an advanced team. The advanced team paves the way for God. By paving the way, the advanced team enables the movement to achieve its purpose. And the purpose depends on the nature of the movement. In the civil rights movement, before marching or demonstrating in a town or a city, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. sent an advanced team to lay the groundwork, scope the atmosphere, scope with churches and caucus with churches and synagogues and mosques, and get the blessing of the people in that town in order to achieve the purpose of the movement. In a political campaign, before the candidate comes into a town, a ward, or precinct, the candidate sends out an advanced team to lay the groundwork, coordinate publicity, security, transportation, press conferences, speeches, meeting with special interest groups, and schmoozing with financial donors. And in the case of the Jesus movement, God sent out John the Baptist as an advanced team to lay the groundwork for building the beloved community. The groundwork for the Jesus movement is described as making crooked ways straight, making jagged edges smooth, so all flesh may be saved by God. Making crooked ways straight and jagged edges smooth. I'm here to remind you this morning that that's what we're about. That's what we're here for. We don't just come to celebrate what God has done for us. We come to do for others what God is doing through us. And in his role as the advanced team for the Jesus movement, John the Baptist preaches a baptism of repentance for the forgiveness of sins. And the text tells us that people rush in to be baptized because they want to avoid judgment and be saved by God. The people can't wait to feel the waters of baptism washing away every guilty stain. But while standing in the River Jordan, rather than greet the crowds with a dunk and a smile, John the Baptist looks at some of them and he says, "You brood of snakes, who warned you to flee from the wrath to come?" You see, sometimes in the crowd, not just with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, even with so-called Christians, sometimes in the crowd, we assume that our link with Abraham is all we need to be saved. Sometimes we think that the waters of baptism are just a hoop to jump through. The crowds assume salvation by past association. Likewise, when we come to church, sometimes we think that just showing up saves us. We assume that hard work saves us. We assume that since grandma was saved, we are automatically saved. It's not true. It's not true. You may have a praying grandmother, and that may help get you closer to God. But you have to have your own encounter with the Lord. You got to stand up and publicly confess, "I know the Lord myself." Sometimes we can miss John's word when he says, "Be baptized and repent." What John tells the crowd then, and what John tells us today, is that salvation from the wrath of God, salvation from the fires of hell, requires not baptism alone, but baptism combined with repentance. Repentance is changing your ways. Repentance is turning in two directions, turning away